we welcome you to Season 2, Episode 10, your Week 4 recap. Week 4.
That's where we're at. It's starting to
Yeah.
feel like week 4, right? That's a month in the
Yeah.
books.
I was thinking that the dust is starting to settle. Teams are starting to really figure out identities. Injuries are starting to pile up, even more
That's true.
than they already were. But yeah, it's good to have Week 4 down. Let's hop right into it. Very
rundown.
boring. The rundown. What the hell's a rundown? Jim Halpert said it best. And he still doesn't know. John Krasinski
That's
still does not know. Oh, anyway.
So coming in, we record this on Monday night. Coming into Monday night, Jacob Habel had only missed on 4 picks. He was our guest last week. Had 10 correct guesses, and then both of his Monday night correction picks go the wrong way. So there's room. He's our new leader in the clubhouse. 10 wins
Yeah.
is the most, but he left a little wiggle room for everyone else that's coming in afterwards.
He was a little bit more gracious to our other hosts that he was our
Yeah.
other guests that he was a year ago, where he just kind of came in and feasted right away. So,
And the quick Monday night reactions is just all fantasy matchups across the board are being decided by the latest game on the last game of the week. The game was sort of decided. Seattle made a little push at the, coming out of the second half locker room, but then penalties start piling up, and we just saw way too much of the refs, certainly. But in general, it made drama for gamblers and degenerates, and
yeah.
That's fun too.
Yes. Fantasy was tight for me in a bunch of leagues. Had a good week in fantasy for me this week across all my leagues, but 2.
Congrats.
And one was close. One, I'm kind of tanking in a dynasty league. So,
Right.
And anyway, so yeah, kind of an interesting night. Thursday was boring though. Dallas beats New York 20-15. Mike Parsons gets hurt at the very end. Malik Neighbors gets hurt at the very end. Kind of a not good case scenario for either team there, other than the Cowboys do get a win against a team they should have beaten. No Utah connections.
And then Sunday morning, Atlanta gets the win over New Orleans with 0 offensive touchdowns. And let's go through the laundry list of Utah guys in this game. So you got Tyler Algier on the Atlanta side, 8 carries, 60 yards. And then skipping down, running back for New Orleans, Jamal Williams, 3 carries for 11 yards. And we get a little moment between the two BYU legends. Great out of the backfield. So it's cool seeing them on the same field. Other Atlanta guys, Caden Ellis, 6 tackles, got a quarterback hit. Clark Phillips III had 3 tackles for Atlanta. And then Taysom Hill, 6 carries, 24 yards, had 2 touchdowns, left the game with an injury. And then Rashid Shaheed, 8 receptions and 83 yards, but a muffed punt that turned into one of those non-offensive scores for Atlanta. So you take a little good, take a little bad. And it's the facts of life for Rashid Shaheed on the day.
Saw a crazy stat today. The Saints have had 36 offensive possessions, okay, so far this season.
Yeah, 9
in 4 games, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Taysom Hill has been healthy for exactly 18 of these. They have scored, I think it's 11 touchdowns on the 18 drives that Taysom's been involved in.
4 field goals.
Oh, yes. They've come away with points.
Yeah.
Is it 2? If I remember correctly, 2 times.
And then 4 field goals on that one, too. So it was like pretty balanced, but the touchdown disparity is where it's at.
It's
Great
insane.
graphic.
Yeah.
Incorporating Taysom Hill into the offensive game plan works, and it's a lot of that short yardage stuff. It's because it's extended drives when Taysom Hill is on the field. Like you kind of dig deeper into why the stat is the stat. And if Taysom's getting on there, it means the drive is continuing because he's a first down machine and he scores like he did on this 6 carries for 24 yards. Kind of a dumb looking stat line, except when you realize what it is that he does, he gets the short yardage and he scores.
And he scores touchdowns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. A potential guest. We haven't lined a guest up for this Thursday, but a potential guest. A friend of mine was at this game on Sunday. Chicago beats the LA Rams 24-18. Jalen Johnson, 5 tackles and a TFL. The Rams just are bandaged together. That it is a Band-Aid right now.
Yeah,
LA.
the Rams defense just awful right? Making even an anemic Bears offense look competent. But Jalen Johnson, I don't know if you were watching any of this game other than red zone stuff, but Jalen Johnson had one particular tackle on a
Mm,
third down
hmm.
where you just get the pop
Yep.
that makes football football. Jalen Johnson really does. If there's a list of three best cornerbacks in the NFL, he's on it. It's him, Patrick Surtain, Sauce Gardner. I don't know who else you want to talk about right now. He's awesome.
Honestly, yeah. Fantastic.
Minnesota had a big lead early, but beats Green Bay by 2 whole points, 31-29. Jordan Love's return in the first half, I was feeling smart that I had benched him in fantasy because I had to have options whenever he was out for injury. And then he goes off because they kind of have to because they were down by so much. 32 of 54 attempts, 389 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Two of those interceptions, boneheaded ones in the first half where he's still looking like he gets his sea legs. The one in the second half into the end zone, another
Kind of you
killer.
just had to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Ironic he
then Zane
wore a
Anderson had a tackle for Green Bay.
I, ironic that Jordan wore a Brett Favre jersey walking into the
That's
stadium because
that's social media. Yep.
my goodness. And he's going to be fine. I mean, he was getting the feel of things back. And here's an interesting stat for you. The Green Bay Packers, when Colby Wilkinson is in attendance this season, 2-0.
There you
When he
go.
is not, they are 0-2.
I'm pretty sure that's
Minnesota,
the Malik Willis stat as well.
it is. So kind of interesting with the Packers. And Minnesota looked great. It was it in the world of just football, not just the National Football League. It was blow big leads weekend. How
Yeah.
many times in college games this
Bama,
weekend did we
BYU.
see big leads blown, almost blown, and then some were blown? I mean, just in my family circle alone, you had Carolina blow a 20-point halftime lead to Duke, lose by one. You had Wisconsin lose up 11 at halftime to USC, lose by 17. There were a lot of leads blown in football this weekend. So Vikings
But
hold on.
momentum's not a thing. The stat guys will tell you it's not real.
Oh, as a stat guy, I am one of those people that's like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That's stupid. So, well, Cole, your Steelers almost were part of those comeback kids as well.
Yeah.
Indianapolis with a backup Joe Flacco get the win 27-24. Julian Blackmon was spectacular in this game for the Colts. A fumble recovery, 6 tackles, half a sack that goes along with his quarterback hit. Matt Gay, 2 of 3 on field goals with a long of 35 and made all 3 of his extra points. No,
Blackman also had an interception in his hands that he just
in
let
his
drop. It
hands.
was on fourth down, so it didn't matter. But just he was part of it. He was involved. That's generally my Sunday setup is red zone on the big TV, Steelers on my phone or my laptop. And every time I look up, 32 is just involved and annoying me. So I was personally affected by Julian
Yeah.
Blackmon's today. Um, there were a lot of points through a lot of those games. So let's talk about the monsoon
Ooh,
in East Rutherford. Denver comes out with the win, 10-9
you're rocking a
against Aaron
Broncos hat.
Rodgers. Throwback a little bit. Cody Barton has 10 tackles. Jonah Ellis, 3 tackles, half a sack, tackle for loss. The quarterback hit to go with it. And a lot of just pressures that don't show up on the stat
Yeah.
line. It was all these bendy edge rushers, and Jonah Ellis is one of them that was just tormenting Aaron Rodgers and not allowing. So Bo Nix, Kenny Pickett gets all the hate for having the small hands, and not being able to handle the elements. Bo Nix had -7 yards on 7 completions at halftime, or -9. It was just
It
miserable
was
for so
bad.
long. Aaron Rodgers could throw the ball. He looked like he was handling it. He just didn't have time to do it. Like he wasn't affected by the elements. He was handled by a Denver pass rush.
Which is fascinating because at the time I was thinking about this, I'm like, man, this is the perfect time for a rainy game to happen for Denver because I think Bo Nix plays this way regardless of the elements. But the more you think about it, you got to give some defense to Denver or some credit to Denver's defense
Mm-hmm.
and let the Zach Wilson, Robert Saleh jokes begin and continue.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. Another team that looks great that did not look that Denver made look bad a week ago returned to their form really from start to finish owned Philadelphia. They win the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 33-16. Uh, earlier this week after our show, Britton Covey was put on IR. It was kind of a late decision in the week. We knew he was kind of hurt, but yeah, so no Britton Covey for Philadelphia. Tampa doesn't have any connections there, although Baker Mayfield with the interview of the year saying he had to change his pants at halftime because it was so hot and humid down there in
Yeah.
Tampa. Just classic Baker Mayfield, man. I'm happy for the guy. I really, really am.
And bad take of the week by me saying that it would make any difference who's calling the plays or doing anything for Philadelphia because Todd Bowles has the Eagles number. It does not matter who the center is, it doesn't matter who's calling plays. Todd Bowles just knows how to shut down the Philadelphia Eagles. Cincinnati escapes against one of the worst teams in the league, 34-24 against the Carolina Panthers. Zach Moss had 15 carries, 50 yards, 4 receptions, 27 yards, and a touchdown. Jay Tufele had 2 tackles, and Ryan Rico on Cincinnati, 3 punts, 170 net yards, and 2 downed inside the 20. No connections on the Carolina Panthers side. The Andy Dalton revenge game comes up short because as much as I am always rooting for a Bengals loss as a Steelers fan in general. And then the Carolina, like not picking against Cincinnati or for Cincinnati in September, all those things combining. And then just every time Red Zone went to this game, Cincinnati, you remember that they just have good players on their team, and Carolina
Yeah.
kind of doesn't, especially on the defense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Joe Burrow's looked pretty good now for 2 weeks. Did have the one interception, but it's about figuring this defense out for Cincinnati because it still did not look great at times against a very vanilla Carolina
Mm-hmm.
Panthers. I mean, I had Xavier Legette on my bench in Dynasty, and he was great. He was one of my leading scorers this week. So
Deontay Johnson has been a great ad. Like going from Pittsburgh is getting all that target volume that we thought, and especially now with Andy Dalton able to deliver a semi-accurate ball, has been a great fantasy ad.
Houston, host Jacksonville. Our guest last week, Jacob Habel, was at this game, sent us some great pictures, had good seats. Texans come from behind. Jacksonville is 0-4. Is Jacksonville the last team without a win in the National Football League?
I believe so.
Because Tennessee won
Especially,
tonight.
yep,
So is Jacksonville it? Are they the last team without a win?
they are. Panthers have one. The Rams and Cardinals have one. Giants have one. But
Wow. Uh, I had bad vibes about Jacksonville. I did not think it was going to be this bad. Houston wins 24-20. Dalton Schultz, 3 catches, 34 yards. No Devin Lloyd playing for Jacksonville on Sunday.
Washington beats your Arizona
Mm.
Cardinals 42-14. Bobby Wagner had 11 tackles, as he normally does, double digits, half sack, tackle for lost quarterback hit. And then Michael Davis gets brought up for Washington. They're trying to figure out their corners because the Washington defense is still kind of suspect, even though Arizona's only able to put 14 on them. But Michael Davis had a tackle on the score sheet.
Yeah, as a Cardinals fan, really frustrated. Thought we had made some real good progress. Even in the loss to Detroit, I thought we've been competitive in every game. Even if we don't beat Washington, I want to see progress. They missed Trey McBride big time on offense, and there's just the defensive line is arguably the worst in the National Football League. Go get Hassan Reddick. I'm throwing it
He's
out
still
there
not
again.
playing.
Go get him
Say it
back.
every episode, Tanner.
I'm going to say it till they go get him. You can get him for cheap too. Like the Jets gave up a third rounder for him. You can probably get him for even less now. You have to
Mm-hmm.
pay him, but hey,
It's not a problem
how,
for Arizona right now.
no, not with how bad that D line is. So yeah. Well, who the Cardinals play this week and my arch nemesis 49ers, even still down a few guys, did what we thought they'd do against New England. Niners win 30-13 over the Patriots. Fred Warner, 7 tackles, a pass deflection, and a 45-yard pick six for
Yes.
Frederick. I have no idea if his actual name is Frederick or if he just goes by Fred, but we're throwing it out there. Mitch Wishnowsky, 3 punts, 144 yards for San Francisco. A little bit better this week for the Niners. It's just a matter of them getting healthy at the end of the day and trying not to keep those injuries piling on.
And nothing has been the fault of Frederico Anthony Warner.
Is
Quick
is that what it
Google
is?
search. That's what PFR says. Doesn't have any nickname. We need a good nickname. You know how Peyton Manning's got the sheriff, and they got all these ridiculous nicknames that no one ever uses on Pro Football Reference. Fred doesn't have any nicknames, but it's
Uh,
Frederico Anthony Warner, and he is the best off-ball linebacker in the game, and we love him. And he got a pick six. The Las Vegas Raiders beat the Browns 20-16 with no Utah connections, and there was no reason for me to flip over to this game during the late
No.
window. The Browns were down bad, and it felt like it. And Las Vegas gets a few of these, but it's going to be kind of a struggle all year because they don't have an answer at the most important position, quarterback.
Yeah. Another wonky game. Kansas City beats the Chargers 17-10. Chargers led 10-0 early. I mean, first two drives, the Chargers put points on the board, and then it was just a struggle fest after that. Alohi Gilman, 3 tackles for the Chargers. Seme Fehoko had a tackle on special teams for the Chargers as well. Kansas City really getting bit by the injury bug. Patrick Mahomes taking out his own receiver's knees in Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
Not a good situation there, given you're already down Hollywood Brown. Uh, yeah, Kansas City still is Kansas City though, and they're 4-0.
Andy Reid's our Utah connection. He's got a job ahead of him. Even for them being the 4-0 team, trying to circle the wagons and figure out what's going on just in general in this locker room, riding the ebbs and flows. Patrick Mahomes, I listen to a lot of different podcasts, and ones that are overreacting to Patrick Mahomes this season are ones that I'm not going to listen to anymore. He can still be the best player, right? Michael Jordan, best player in the NBA for a long time. LeBron James, best player in the NBA for a long time. Just because you're the best, you're not going to win the MVP every single year. You're not going to have the best year of your life every year. This is just one of the down years from Patrick Mahomes, and they're still 4-0, and they're still
Yeah,
like figuring it out by hook or by crook. And so, yeah, this is still credit to Andy Reid.
that's interesting. You bring that up because how many MVPs does Kobe Bryant have? He only ever won one.
I think
LeBron's
so,
only
yeah.
got 4 MVPs, if I remember right. Come on, he's been the best player. He was the best player on the planet for 11, 12, 13 years.
Hmm.
I mean,
And that's
yeah,
why, yeah, when we get to the end of the season, we start talking
yeah,
about the awards race, especially even when we give out our awards, you have to talk about how you philosophically approach awards. If
yeah.
you're giving it to the best player or the most valuable to your team, if you try to be that literal annoying, pedantic person when it comes to, oh, it's called most valuable and they're most valuable to your team. Fred Warner is the most valuable to his team. He's the best player. He's gonna be the best every single year, but he doesn't have the best performance every game. He's not truly, I don't know. You have to acknowledge that what happens on the field also happens. And just because his Madden rating would be the best out of anyone, it doesn't mean you just give him the MVP every year.
Agreed. Agreed.
I mentioned circling the wagons. The Bills got circled by the Baltimore Ravens 35-10. And you talk about momentum not existing. The Bills on back-to-back primetime weeks have proven that if you just start hot, it might not matter what happens in the second half. And they were on the receiving end of it this week. Baltimore gets the big win, and it's Kyle Van Noy, 2 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 3 hits on the quarterback, got a forced fumble too. Dalton Kincaid on the Buffalo side, 5 receptions, 47 yards, and Cole Bishop on the Buffalo side, 6 tackles. But Tanner, for the second straight week, the floor is yours. Tell us about your love for Kyle Van Noy.
I'm just happy for him, man. Like he's still doing this. He's the second leading sack man in the NFL 4 weeks into the season. It's just awesome. He was on Pat McAfee this morning. Said he feels like he's been one of the most underrated players in the league since he's been, and it's true. You look at his time in New England, very underrated with what he did, helping that team win Super Bowls. What
Mm-hmm.
he did in Miami for the one year, very underrated. What he did in San Diego, well, excuse me, wow, haven't made that mistake in a while. Los Angeles with the Chargers for that one year, very underrated. And then he just goes unsigned and leave it to a guy like John Harbaugh to pick a guy like Van Noy up and just say,
Mm-hmm.
at this point in your career, we're going to have you do this one thing. You were the do-it-all guy at BYU. You were the do-it-all guy in New England. We want you getting after the quarterback, and I'm telling you, it's working. That defense is starting to figure some more things out, and momentum was a big thing. I mean, that Derrick Henry run just set the tone early in that game, and Buffalo's going to be fine. The same way we were saying Baltimore was ultimately going to be fine. So, interesting night.
The Pro Bowl was has been broken for a very long time. Fan voting ruins it, and players just not wanting to go and travel ruins it because then you have to start getting down to the seventh or eighth guy that was voted in that gets called that they go to the Pro Bowl because you have to field a team for some reason. Anyway, there should be a Pro Bowl spot. We should figure out in our awards methodology for just the designated pass rusher because Kyle Van Noy isn't out there on every single snap and he's not this, run stopper, Khalil Mack, do it all kind of edge rusher anymore. But as far as old man designated pass rushers go, best in the league.
Yeah, it's been incredible to see. He's always back there too. I mean, every play that he is in too, he's making the quarterback uncomfortable, including on that trick play. Will he be my MVP for a second straight week in a row? You'll have to wait because we got to recap Monday night. This game was fascinating for all the wrong reasons. Tyler Huntley gets the start for the Dolphins. They look awful. Uh, Tennessee looks a lot better with Will Levis out. Your boy Mason Rudolph, former
Mm.
Steeler, comes in pretty early into the game, and Tennessee wins 31-12. Huntley goes 14 of 22, 96 yards passing, with 8 carries for 40 yards. Did get a quarterback sneak in, but also got a safety and then fumbled and lost it at one point. So not the best debut for Tyler Huntley, but I mean, I think that's how we talked about this in a previous episode, how complex Mike McDaniel's scheming is, how long it takes to learn this offense. They were desperate for some spark, and he still got the start despite just being around this team for 10, 11, 12 days.
Yeah,
Uh,
Huntley's talented, but in order to thrive in the Mike McDaniel system behind a non-existent offensive line, you have to have a specific set of skills. And honestly, like even guys that are objectively better quarterbacks than Tua would have to do things different than Tua because Mike McDaniel has crafted, handmade this offense to only work with Tua back there. And Tua is one of the most injury prone quarterbacks, players in the NFL. And so this was a house of cards that was ready to tumble down. I put all my preseason stock in the Miami Dolphins being the one seed in the AFC and having this one wonderful regular season. And it has been crashing down around me with every passing week. So Huntley, it's cool that he's still like got his name out there in NFL circles and got this start and reminding people that he's talented. This was not the best showcase of his talents running this particular offense.
One might say about the Dolphins, they so poo-poo. Uh,
Unfortunately so, as
yeah.
well as Tyler Huntley's alma mater in its Big 12 matchup.
We know we probably have some Ute listeners, but we're a couple of Cougars on this show, and 17 and 18. That's all I'm going to say. That's all. That's all that needs to be said. So
It's I don't talk quite as much smack, and considering that the
no,
Cougars' next opponent is also that same Arizona team, you got
that's
2 weeks to talk it until
it's going to be real. That game is going to be fascinating for so many reasons. So many reasons.
final Monday night game. Talk about, a safety at the end of it. And we mentioned just at the top of the show all the fantasy implications that ended up happening because it's the highest scoring game of the week. It's Detroit 42, Seattle 29. Had a chance at the end. They get all kinds of penalties towards the end. But the Utah connection on the stat sheet is Tim Patrick being here with 2 receptions for 52 yards. Penei Sewell doing his thing, anchoring on the offensive line and allowing Jared Goff to have the time to be perfect.
Did he end perfect?
No
because
incomplete passes. I don't know if it was a perfect passer rating specifically, but perfect completion percentage.
Because anytime there was an incompletion, there was some kind of a flag, whether
Yeah.
for or against Detroit. I mean, it was kind of fascinating to follow. Cole, you and I are in what's called a guillotine league, where folks, if you have not played guillotine, this is your inspiration to
Fascinating
start your
format.
own. It's so fascinating. So how you have 18 teams, okay? So your rosters are already razor thin.
The
Okay.
same number of attempts and completions that Jared Goff had, by the way.
Oh,
18 of
well,
18 was
there
the
you
final
go.
stat line.
So he'd survive a guillotine league. He'd win a guillotine league in that case. But so instead of going head to head and having a win-loss record, whoever has the lowest amount of points at the end of the week
In the entire
is
league.
in the
Any
whole
team.
league. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're gone. You're done. Your players get released into free agency. You have the $100 to spend on free agents throughout the season in a bidding war. Uh, and Cole, this is officially the longest I've lasted. I was projected to go out tonight. Heading into tonight, I had
Mhm.
Jameer Gibbs and Zach Charbonnet. And Gibbs, obviously, I mean, pretty much anyone who's anyone went off in this game tonight. Gibbs went off.
Kenneth
Charbonnet,
Walker,
Kenneth,
huge night.
I have Kenneth Walker in like three other leagues and came back and won every single one of those. Like they were close until his second or third touchdown, or second touchdown of the night. But Yeah, survived another. This is the longest I've made it, and this is the third year we've done it. I was out week 4, year one. I was out week 3 last year. I've now made it to week 5, so little pat
There
on
you
the
go.
back
Nice.
for Wilk on that. But this was a wild game. A lot of, like you said, a lot of penalties being thrown. Some obvious, some okay. Um,
Suspect.
yeah, uh, some really obvious. Um, Out there, what's people were complaining about on social media, and it's like, mm, no. Like sometimes they just have to throw the flag. Like I get
Yes.
it. It's frustrating when a drive stalls out. It's frustrating when, you're so close to being able to get back into a game or finish off a game, but sometimes that it's just obvious and it just needs to happen. So, uh Detroit's offensive line though, man. Oh, chef's kiss was just
Hmm.
other than the decision to throw out of their own end zone. I get the concept of throwing because the clock's going to stop either way. I don't get it when you're that backed up. And fortunate for them, it didn't change anything. It was still a two-score game. Uh, they were going to win regardless of what happened there.
It was all the fantasy implication. It was all the guys like us that were watching these guillotine matchups that were within 1 point between five different teams. Who was gonna like?
Yep.
Does Detroit throw it again, and does it go to Amon Ra to get just like one more point for the PPR? And yeah, that was the drama. Not so much the Lions coming away with the win and going to 3-1, which is behind only the Vikings in their own division in the NFC, the only undefeated team left in the NFC, and then the Chiefs undefeated in the AFC.
If we get a Vikings Chiefs Super Bowl, I will wear a skull helmet. Jacob Habel, our guest last week, if you can find me one, I'll wear it on Super Bowl Sunday if that is in fact the matchup. Highly doubt
Brian
that it will be, but
Flores hooking all kinds of stuff up. It's been fascinating to watch that
yeah.
defense.
Well, we got a couple potential guests for this week. Three people I'm in contact with that were guests last year, so we'll kind of leave a mystery as to who that's going to be. Uh, Cole, another week down, my brother, and I just love the National Football League. I love the NFL, and I love that my love for it has grown so much just in the last 5 years, really. Just realizing what a beautiful sport football is, and sometimes you and I, as we do these high school games, we hear things about how, oh, these kids aren't in it for the money and all this stuff. So it makes it more pure. It makes it better.
Mm,
Mm,
NFL's a pretty good product, guys.
Any of these pro sports, these are the best athletes on the planet. We live in a time and age where the best athletes ever exist. And I just think it's so cool that we get to watch that and appreciate. I don't think that's appreciated enough in today's day and age. That's all I have to say about
Mm,
it.
I love that. Yeah, I have always been passionate about the NFL, and that's a good way to put it.
Still a bigger BYU fan than an Arizona Cardinal fan for sure. But if you give me the choice, NFL or college, I'm probably going to watch the NFL 9 times out of 10. Although Alabama Georgia was fun on Saturday
That is
night.
true.
It was a good college football weekend. Football's just fun. Make football fun again. That's all I have to say.
I tell you,
For
that
the for people,
17-year-old receiver for Alabama is having fun out there.
was born in 2007. He was born a couple days after LeBron James's last single-digit scoring game. So as long as this kid has been alive, LeBron James has never scored under 10 points in an NBA game.
Yeah, '07, the year that the iPhone came out, I'm pretty sure it was
Lot,
either '06 or
yeah.
'07. That's when he was born. That's
We're
that's
get
where we're at right now.
we're getting
Getting
old,
older every
dude.
day.
We're getting old.
We got MVPs to give out for this week.
We do. Yeah, better not forget that.
Couple great candidates.
A lot better than last week was Slim Pickens. This week there's a lot of good guys. Julian Blackmon is a big name that I thought of early in the early window. Obviously Fred Warner with the pick six, and Fred's always a candidate. I'm so tempted to pick Kyle for a second
Hmm.
straight week. It was prime time against an undefeated team, better opponent.
Set the tone, was part of
Yeah,
establishing it early.
I'm going with Kyle again because I mean, as much as I love him and as great as he is in his role, is this fully sustainable at this rate? I don't think so. Is he going to get 2 sacks every week? Probably not. Is he going to end up with double-digit sacks by the end of the year? Pretty easily. Yeah, I think so, as long as he stays healthy. I'm going KVN again. My mind was pretty well made up on Fred Warner after the pick six, but the impact Van Noy had in a much bigger game on a much bigger stage is what's given me to having me pick him for the MVP of the week.
A couple other guys that we didn't mention. Taysom Hill, even being out for some of that game with the rib injury, had 2 touchdowns. Can't gloss over that. And then Jalen Johnson, we mentioned, was a mood changer. I was leaning Julian Blackmon until that pick six for Fred. And San Francisco with the big win against an anemic New England offense. I am going to give it to Fred Warner.
I consider Bobby Wagner too. I mean, Bobby was very, very good against Arizona. Zach Moss, I thought, had his best game as a Cincinnati Bengal this week.
Meanwhile, the running back behind Browns having just as good of a game and scoring a lot of points on people's fantasy bench there too.
How about fantasy waived? I waived him this week in guillotine and still survived. So it's all good at the end of the day. Also, the guy who started Christian Watson over Dontavian Wicks. So, uh, yeah, that's football and it's fun.
Yeah,
Catch up with you Thursday, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll have some fun ones to break down on Thursday.
heck yeah. Can't wait.
He's our co-host, Cole Wissinger. I'm your other co-host, co-manager, Tanner Wilkinson. You've been listening to Wilk and Wiss, your bi-weekly breakdown of Utah athletes in the National Football League and the passionate fans, you the fan, here in the state of Utah that makes this podcast possible. We'll talk to you on Thursday.